Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Morris, CEO at Proctors. Our guest today is Scott Sauer, Executive Vice President, though he says it with a laugh, at WMHT Public Broadcast. Scott, thanks for being here today.
Great to be here, Philip. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, right? Sort of odd to be Happy New Year already, right?
It certainly is.
So, the show, what I like to do is talk to people about them. You know, so you're Executive Vice President at WMHT. More important to me, you've been here a long time, you've watched a lot. What do you see? I mean, what is the last, how long have you been at MHT?
I've been 21 years.
So,
I used to be the young guy there, by the way.
oh, you're still sort of the young guy there, right?
I don't know what happened, but anyway.
So 21 years. Talk about MHT over 21 years.
It's interesting. In a lot of ways, I've seen this huge evolution. The technology has changed dramatically. We, used to be videotape, and everything was very manual. It took people to manually handle tape, and to do any production, it took dozens and dozens of people. And the technology has dramatically changed, making it easier to do in some ways, but more technically challenging. People who've been doing this for a lot of years have had to relearn their skills 2, 3, 4 times. The investment in technology is enormous. So it used to be in public broadcasting, you would buy a piece of equipment, a camera, and it was supposed to last for 7 years, and you'd make it last for 25 years, and that was the way you did it in public broadcasting. But now, because everything is based on software, it's like your home computer. You can only make it last as long as you can make it last. But the fundamentals haven't changed. It's still all about what's the content. We started in the basement of the Riverside School with a teacher in front of a chalkboard, and it was all about education and making it available to as many people as we could. And that's still at the core of what we do every day.
But you have 3 channels now on the television side.
That's right. 3 television channels, 2 radio stations. We're delivering more and more content on our website, WMHT.org, where you can stream programs that we've created stream programs from PBS. We just signed an agreement with the BBC to be able to stream some of their programs there. There's podcasts. People are now able to listen to our radio stations on their smartphone or on their computer or on the radio still. With analog radios or digital radios, it keeps going on and on. So the delivery opportunities are bigger than ever. But again, still.
So if you were looking at this, like a pattern,
yep.
What do you see 10 years out?
I think we're only going to see the number of ways that people can experience our content continue to grow. I don't think we even know yet what some of those ways are, but I think you'll see more and more people watching a program, on a television screen certainly, but also on a handheld device, on a smartphone or on a tablet. I think you'll see that grow. I think, who knows what the next way to experience the content will be. I think that's what we have to keep doing, is trying to look down the horizon, trying to listen to the audience about what it is that they want and how they want to experience it, and do the best that we can to deliver it in that way.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciated about you, and I've known you since I lived here 10 years ago moving here, is your stories about WEXT, which in lots of ways, if you had an impact, a personal impact, it seems to me that's it. And the story that I remember is, after we decided what it was going to be, I brought my whole collection of CDs to the station and we started using them.
Well, it's interesting because WEXT at 97.7 FM has been on the air now for 5.5 years as what we call a AAA format station. Essentially, the rock music that nobody else will play. Local artists, live cuts, deep cuts, emerging artists. But when we started it, this is a format that we didn't invent. It exists in various ways around the country. But we didn't have a budget for it. We had a frequency that we had bought out of bankruptcy, but we didn't have a budget. So the CDs were my CDs in large case, and other people on the staff, friends. We collected that together. But the funny thing is that WMHT FM, our classical radio station that started 40 years ago, it started in much the same way. People buy vinyl records, boxes of vinyl records, and some of those people are absolutely still with us and supporting us, but are the first to tell you, you started with my Beethoven collection.
Shostakovich, I know you have it.
And it's true. So it's interesting just how the patterns repeat themselves in a lot of ways.
It really is interesting. So, are you guys happy with EXT?
We're happy in the impact that we've heard from a lot of people. So the Times Union and Metroland and other entities continue to name it the best music radio station in the market, which is always gratifying. Local musicians, what we call the local 518 musicians, tell us over and over again how much impact we've had in their careers, giving them radio exposure that they just don't get anywhere else. We play a local artist at least once an hour, and sometimes even more than that. So we hear a lot of impact from them. We hear from other people who tell us they'd stopped listening to the radio altogether until EXT came along. So that's all very satisfying. It's frustrating in that the audience is there, 20 or 25,000 listeners or so, but we'd love to see more listeners, and it's hard to drive them there with a marketing budget of exactly $0, and financially it's a struggle. So it's a labor of love in a lot of ways. If you look at our staff, the same people who are running WMHT-FM, our classical station, are exactly the same people who are running WEXT-FM. Plus some volunteers, and plus just saying, oh, you had 2 jobs before, now you've got 4 jobs. Congratulations, and so it goes.
Now that's the call letters are from Amsterdam.
That's right. The transmitter and the antenna are actually in Amsterdam.
But everything else comes out of the studios?
Everything comes out of our studios at the TUI Broadcasting Center at the Rensselaer Technology Park. So using a digital phone line, we send our content to the transmitter in Amsterdam and then out over the airways from there.
Actually, digital phone line, DSL?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that's something that 15 years ago I was using to go from Chautauqua to Jamestown.
Let me just tell you, it's not cutting edge technology. And everything about this is grassroots, shall we say. I mean, the transmitter, there's literally duct tape on that transmitter, and it's been around for more than its fair share of years. And it's a community-based radio station, without a doubt.
Sounds like OSM.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. So, how about you? Been here 21 years. What's changed in your life in 21 years?
Marriage, a child, a house, all those things have certainly been wonderful. But I think I grew up an hour or so south of where I live now. I grew up in a little town called Hurley, New York, that to this day doesn't have a traffic light in it, but a great place to grow up. But, I lived in Pennsylvania, I lived in Atlanta, I lived in Los Angeles, and then I moved back here just over 21 years ago. And with every day, week, month, year, you feel yourself more and more a part of this community and appreciate all the things that are about it. And I think what we're seeing collectively, I think this community has grown, and that we've been able to be a part of that. So with the 10 years of incredible work that you've done here at Proctors, I think it's added so much to the quality of life. I think the work that I and my colleagues have done at WMHT, I think has been part of that experience. So I think that's been an awful lot of fun. So.
When we talk about the 518 musicians, what do you describe the cultural scene over 20 years? I mean, what's changed in that?
I'm not sure that anything has. I think this is an area that, for whatever reason, and you can define the area any way you want, but has always been very nurturing of artists. Some people say it's the light. Some people say it's just the culture. Some people will just say that it's something even more organic than that. But this is a place that's nurtured artists, visual artists, recording artists, singers, songwriters. I mean, think of classical musicians who were born in Schenectady or wherever. And so, whatever reason, this has been always an area that's produced artists, but I think in a lot of ways they've gone somewhere else. When it was time for their career to begin or to flourish, they may have started here, but they went somewhere else. I think more and more now we're seeing people who are able to stay here and to make a career out of it, to make a life out of it. And more I think people are starting to understand who some of these artists are. And it's as simple as sometimes as playing them on the radio. So you can go out and play a gig 7 nights in a row, and if you're playing in clubs and there might be 20 or 30 or 50 people there, at the end of that week, maybe you've reached 100 or 200 people. One song on the radio, and you may have reached 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 people, all at once. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's hard for an artist to get that exposure in sort of the media world as it exists today.
So do you think that we actually have a changing cultural environment? I mean,
I think it's a more nurturing.
You think it's still there, it's still nurturing, it's still...
I do. I worry about not only us, I worry about any artist who's trying to be discovered nowadays, because in some ways there are fewer opportunities to be discovered. If you think about what,
Oh, it's amazing.
think of the early days of FM radio and how it was sort of freeform, and
You get in a car, you drive around, you hope you get on, and
yeah, and now it's most commercial-oriented media outlets are owned by a conglomerate, which is programmed somewhere else, and it's a small playlist. And as a local artist, you have little opportunity to get exposure in that way. But in public media setting, you don't have those same constraints, so you can provide a little bit more of an opportunity. And,
though,
yeah.
interestingly enough, MHT radio and television are actually kind of linking more with upstate public broadcasters, right?
Yeah, it's always been a collaborative system. If you think of PBS as an entity produces exactly no programs. All of the programs that are considered to be PBS programs are produced by individual stations, by independent producers. PBS as an organization is simply a place to aggregate that content, to do a little curation of it, and to distribute it. So we've always sort of partnered in that way. And then there's WMHT productions going back over many decades that have not only been seen here but around the country. There's a concert that was recorded in 1977 with Pete Seeger and Arlo Guthrie at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center that WMHT recorded and was shown all around the country. That's a lot of years ago, but those are artists who were relevant then, relevant now, but who don't get any exposure anywhere else but public media. But it was a program created by WMHT. So we continue to do that. So we partner with other stations across New York State. We're involved in something called we're focusing on sort of the innovation economy of New York State. And
that's the news. You guys got a grant as upstate providers for this news?
Yeah, there's 5 upstate nonprofit and public media outlets, and we're all trying to focus on this emerging innovation economy that goes across upstate New York. We see it here with this incredible growth in nanotechnology, but it's happening in other ways in other communities.
Yeah, medical in Buffalo.
That's right. So we're working together on that. There's more and more programs that are being produced in the WMHT studios that are being seen not only here, but all around the country. Many of these are sort of lecture-based programs that at one point may have been produced in a studio in New York City or Los Angeles, but are now being produced at WMHT and going elsewhere.
Well, part of my question is, in some ways, you're an odd mix, because the public broadcast side is sort of nationalized. I mean, it's not a local station.
Right.
It is, but it isn't. And yet there's EXT or even MHT classical radio that is fairly localized. I mean, highly localized in the case of EXT.
Yeah, it's interesting because, WMHT is not producing Nova, and Nova is airing on hundreds of PBS stations around the country. But what we are doing is trying to curate our own schedule to fit this community's needs. So part of my responsibility is to make sure that our television schedules are matching up with the needs of our community. So WMHT creates its own schedule. We sort of have a menu. We take some programs from PBS, some from American Public Television, some from the BBC, some we create ourselves, some we go out into the community and we work with independent filmmakers. We just aired an independent film from this really talented filmmaker named Nate Sims, who spent years creating this documentary called Brunswick, looking at the tensions of sort of farmland versus development. He created this well-crafted documentary that got shown here and there in little screenings here with 20 or 30 or 50 people, but wasn't getting the audience that it really deserved. But in 1 or 2 airings at WMHT, suddenly that audience goes from here to here, and it's just an outlet that wouldn't exist otherwise. So it's a real mix of where are we finding the content, how are we piecing it together, and how are we trying to make sure it reflects the needs of our community.
So what do you do for fun?
I have an 11-year-old son. That's awfully fun, and every day, whether it's bringing him to lacrosse or goofing around with him in the backyard,
So do you have a stick?
Yeah.
Can you catch all right?
He's good. Me? I got bruises here or there. It's all right, I'm tough. I can take that.
So that's your fun?
It is. Else? More and more, it's the work at WHT is demanding. So that's fun in its own right, but it takes up an awful lot of the time. So my fun revolves around family. It's what can we do together as a family.
Well, I know I can always find you, and I know what I work. So Scott, thank you for being here.
Phil, thank
Fabulous to have you in our community. Fabulous for you to be back home, and much appreciated your time. This is Philip Morris with Impact. Our guest was Scott Sauer, Executive Vice President at WMHT. Thank you. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.